Elden Ring Nightreign's DLC, the Forsaken Hollows, introduced a couple new types of points of interest. The most striking ones are the Marshes, all of which are themed around status effects and which are great sources of gear early on. Between their diverse loot drops, which include seal boxes and staff racks, and their weak bosses, these marshes are great locations to hit at the start of any expedition. Hi everyone, my name's Diabedor, and today I'm going to tell you all about Nightreign's Marshes. If you find this video helpful, please leave a like, share the video, and consider subscribing. It really helps me out. Special thank you to the Story of Us in a Bus, Mini Cake, Raymond Bridger, Dylan Riley, and Vornak for supporting me as members. If you want to see your name immortalized in
the Hall of Insolence
and get access to some other exclusive perks, then consider joining my channel as a member too. So there are 7 different types of marshes in Nightreign, and while they vary in status affinity and enemy variety, they largely share the same physical layout. The main thing that changes between them are the locations of the 3 important containers: the large chest, which can drop decent loot and stone sword keys, the seal box, which can drop sacred seals, and the staff rack, which can drop glintstone staves. Every marsh has these 3 containers, but their exact location differs from marsh to marsh, so in order to help you find them more easily, I'm going to break down the marsh layout, and then I'll run you through each of the different types of marsh to show you where these containers are. We'll also take a look at each of the bosses, so you'll know what to expect in any given marsh. I like to think of the marshes as having 5 distinct areas. Area number 1 I call the main courtyard. There can be a lot of different types of enemies here, and there's usually a lot of loot. Area number 2 I call the main underground entrance. There are a couple different entrances to the underground, which I'll talk about later, but this is the main one and is a spot where you can find loot like a seal box or a staff rack in some of the marshes. And then if we swing around to the right side here, we've got area number 3, which I call the side courtyard, and then the area number 4, which I call the exit rampart, and then there's also the exit rampart tower, but I'm just going to consider that part of area 4. So you can see the door that I have highlighted in blue there with the red arrow. That's where you come out of after you beat the boss, thus that's why I call this the exit rampart. And then finally, I'm going to consider the entire underground area of the marsh to be its own 5th area. So this is the spot where the layout can change a little bit depending on the marsh. Specifically, you see this room that I just walked into. This can be one of 2 different rooms depending on the marsh. We'll talk about that when we talk about the underground, but both of them are very straightforward, so it's not really like maze-like or anything. You shouldn't have any trouble navigating it. Now, if you're like me, you also probably wondered whether or not there is loot on top of these towers. Some of the marsh layouts do have things like chests or corpses up here that you can loot. In my experience, they don't seem to drop anything noteworthy, and the only way to get here in normal gameplay is to either get really lucky with a spirit stream placement, or to have a spectral hawk that flies over the marsh, and then you can drop down onto it. But like I said, the loot's not even that good, so it's not worth going out of your way for, and I'm not really going to talk about that stuff in this. I also want to do a brief overview of the underground real quick. So when you come in through the main underground entrance, there's a little side room. I consider this part of the main entrance. I'll probably call it the side room or whatever. So you go down through the main entrance, and that leads you into the caves in the underground. There can be loot in a couple different spots here. One thing I specifically want to mention is that when you first come in, there's this room on the right. I'm going to call that Scholar's Room because that room is used for Scholar's remembrance quest. It's one of his personal objectives during his remembrance quest, where you drop down here. This door will be open, and you come into this little room and pick something up. Unless you are doing Scholar's Remembrance Quest, you can't get into this room, and there's nothing over here, so don't bother with it. The exception is for some of the marsh layouts, there will be like a staff box here, or a seal box here, but I'll talk about that when we get there. But yeah, so there's the Scholar's Room, and then after that, it's pretty much just a straight path that takes you directly to the boss. There will be some loot and stuff along the way, but we'll talk about that once we get there. After you kill the boss, you'll be able to either take the spirit stream, if there is one, or if it's the other underground layout that I showed that has like a big room, instead of going all the way down to where that spirit stream is, you'll just be in this room here, and you can just walk up the stairs and go out the exit. And the exit has a pressure pad, which you need to step on in order to open it, so you can't just take a shortcut directly to the boss. So now that we know the general layout of the marshes, I'm going to talk about the 7 different types of marshes that there are, and what the differences are and where you can find the containers in each of them. First up are the poison marshes, of which there are actually two different kinds. There are ones that have Kindred of Rot, and so you can tell this kind because it has those fungal sorcerers over there, and it'll have the baby Kindred of Rot all over the place. And then there are the ones with the spider scorpions, which will have the spider scorpions all over the place. As far as I'm aware, there's no way to actually tell the difference until you get there and see which enemies are there. Their containers will lead out slightly differently, but it's pretty much the same thing, so it's really not hard to navigate. So first we're going to talk about the Kindred Marsh. So in the main courtyard, there's going to be a large chest, which can drop decent loot and stone sword keys, so if you have the Evergel relic, you definitely want to hit that. Throughout the rest of the main courtyard and the side courtyard, there's not really all that much of interest except for some corpses and some crates if you need consumables, so that's good for Scholar. Once you go down into the main underground area, right before the boss, on your right, there is a seal box over here. Try not to get swarmed. After that, you drop down and it takes you right to the boss. The boss for this one will be 3 Kindred of Rot. They're very weak to fire. They can be annoying if all 3 of them attack you at once, and you see I'm going to die from the fucking pest threads, so keep an eye out for that. But if you have some crowd control, or if you're playing a trio, you shouldn't have too much trouble with them. After they're dead, the spirit stream will activate. You can take that up into the locked room, where you'll find the staff rack for this marsh. From here, you can go up the stairs and go out the exit. This will take you up onto the exit rampart. So you can climb up onto the tower here from the right side. You see there's like the broken wall there, so you want to go on the right side, not the left. There's a large chest up here. I haven't seen it drop anything other than just like uncommon loot, but I bet it can drop rares or something. But, you know, so that's worth checking out on your way out, and then that's the end of the marsh. And like I said before, there's a second type of poison marsh which has spider scorpions instead of Kindred of Rot. The spider scorpions are a lot more annoying to deal with in my opinion. I usually just run past them, or I usually just ignore these marshes entirely. But anyway, so like the other one, it has the large chest in the main courtyard. Then the first layout difference you'll notice is that the seal box is right here in the main underground entrance, as opposed to before the boss down in the underground. So if you're looking for seals, this is a good place to run in and grab one real quick. The second thing you're going to notice is that instead of the caverns down in the underground, this one has the big room, and it's full of spider scorpions. So you can run past them. You see the staff box, or the staff rack, excuse me, is right here directly in front of the boss room. And then the boss is going to be 2 spider scorpions. These guys are a pain in the ass to fight if you don't have things like fire and area of effect or range attacks. So honestly, I recommend not even fighting these guys because I find them really fucking annoying. You see here I used a tactical usage of my ult to hit both of them at once. They're weak, but they're a pain in the ass to fight, so yeah. But that's your prerogative. Once they're dead, again, you just run up the stairs and that takes you right out onto the rampart. And instead of 1 large chest that drops uncommon loot, you've got 3 small chests that also drop uncommon loot. So I don't know which one's better. Like I said, I don't know what the drop tables are because I don't think anyone's really like data mine that stuff yet. But, if you need loot, it's a good place to stop on your way out of the marsh. Up next is the Rot Marsh. So unlike the Poison Marshes, as far as I can tell, all the other types of marsh, so there's Rot, Frost, Blood, whatever, they all only have 1 layout. So you'll only ever find the 1 type of Rot Marsh here. You'll see on this one I dropped into the side courtyard because the large chest is over here. So that's where you can get your Stone Sword Key and some uncommon loot. In the main courtyard, there's just a bunch of corpses that drop loot. So if you need like miscellaneous weapons to get weapon passives, if you need consumables, especially if you're someone like Scholar, this is a good place to stop. If not, then just head straight to the underground after hitting the main chest, because there's really not all that much of interest over here. There's nothing in the main underground entrance, but once you get into the underground itself, there's a staff rack directly on your right here, so you can grab those. There's nothing in Scholar's room, so don't even bother going to it. And then you can find the seal box in the second chamber right before the boss. If you see this drop something like Catch Flame or another fire-based spell, that's good because the boss here is a Clean Run Knight who is very weak to fire. They're pretty easy to fight, just be careful with the grab. If you're someone like Undertaker, then you can dodge the grab for the free ult charge, which I didn't do there, but I did hit her with my ult. And again, once she's dead, you take the Spirit Stream up. That takes you to a locked room that has some loot in it, and then you can go up out onto the Rampart Tower, where you'll find nothing of any particular interest except for a couple crates and a couple chests. So again, if you need like consumables or weapon passives, that's nice. If not, move on to the next point. Don't hang around too long. Up next are the Blood Marshes. So again, like every type of marsh besides the Poison Marshes, there's only 1 type of Blood Marsh, so it'll always have the same layout. You've got your large chest in the main courtyard, surrounded by, I think, like albinarics. There's also a staff rack over here in the main courtyard, so if you're looking for staffs, that's a good place to go. And then once you go down into the underground, there's nothing in the main underground entrance. You'll find the seal box in Scholar's room this time, so make sure you hit that if you need seals. You got to be careful, though, because there are these slug things on the roof, so once you go in, they try to drop down onto you, and they'll grab you if they drop down onto you. So bait them to fall, then go in, like you saw I did. And then after that, you can just head straight over to the boss room. The boss is going to be dual sanguine nobles, so be careful of their bleed buildup, be careful of their parry, because they can parry your attacks. A good tip for that is that they can't parry jump attacks, so you can use jump attacks on them and not worry about getting parried. I'd also recommend you make sure you kill any dogs in the room before this, just so that they don't follow you up here and you don't end up getting, swarmed by dogs and sanguine nobles. You see, I got owned even though there were no dogs. That's because I suck. Just ignore that. Once you go out onto the exit rampart, there's a small chest in the tower, and there's also a small chest on the rampart after this, and a couple crates. So if you're looking for blood stuff, or especially like if you're Scholar and need like blood grease or swarm pots, this is a really good place to check. And there's also a couple more in this little balcony, whatever, patio over here. Up next are the Frost Marshes. So we've got a large chest in the main courtyard here, and you see it's guarded by a rune bear, so be careful of him because he will fuck you up. There's a bunch more small chests in the side courtyard here. I don't think I have footage of that, but if you need just a bunch of miscellaneous loot, you can go to the side courtyard for that. You've got your staff rack in the main underground entrance, and then once you go down into the main underground, there's nothing in Scholar's room, but there is a seal box in the underground right before the boss. Try not to get swarmed by the albinarics, and be careful of the constant frostbite buildup that happens over time. You saw I just got frostbitten there. This is, I think, the only one where the status builds up in the underground just constantly. And then the boss is a frost crayfish. I kicked its ass really hard because it's pretty weak. It doesn't have that much health. And I was using fire and shit, which it's weak to. I will say that if you do end up having to actually fight it, it's a lot easier than people think they are. They're really not that hard once you learn them. The main thing is you can punish its attacks when it doesn't attack with the big claw. If it doesn't attack with the small claw, don't try to punish. Just wait for another attack to come from the big claw. You'll have a much better time fighting them like that. So here on the rampart tower, there's really nothing of interest except for a couple of crates. There's no chest or nothing, I don't think. You saw I was climbing up there because sometimes you have difficulty climbing up on the left side. It's better to climb up on the right side where the wall is broken. It's more consistent that way. But yeah, so there's no loot here except for some crates. So if you need consumables, go to town. If not, move on to the next one. Speaking of moving on to the next one, up next we've got the Madness Marshes, which you'd think would be a lot more cancerous than they actually are, but these are actually pretty easy. Just don't get swarmed by the rats because they do madness buildup and they hit pretty hard. So first up, we've got the large chest in the main courtyard, surrounded by a bunch of loot and a bunch of rats. I suggest you just hit the chest and then get the fuck away from the rats, because fuck those rats. You've got the seal box down in the first room of the main underground area. And then before the boss, instead of caverns, we've got the room, and your staff rack is going to be right here in the middle of it on your left. I ran past it, but then I saw it out of the corner of my eye and I came back to it. So there's your staff rack. And then once you go up to the boss is 4 nomadic merchants who hit really hard and do madness buildup, but they're also super weak. So if you can stun them or hit them from range, you'll fuck them up pretty easily. Just be careful of their melees, because the melees can do a bunch of damage. And then there's the Miranda Blossom. You see it has this unique attack that the other ones don't have, where it can like swing around its fucking head. But the stem of it doesn't seem to hit you. So as long as you stay up close to the base of it, you can fuck it up. It's super weak to fire, so just use fire on it, and it'll die eventually. Also, again, I recommend you kill the mad commoners in the room before the boss room, just to make sure that they don't swarm up on you. I was lucky enough that it didn't happen in this clip, but if they all gang up on you plus the boss, you're gonna have a bad time. So I recommend you kill them. And then once you go out onto the exit rampart, there is a chest and a couple crates, and that's it. Last but not least, we've got the sleep marsh. The sleep really isn't that much of a problem, except for here when the crab is doing it, because it does a lot of build up. You're going to see I get slept twice. I was like, oh, fuck. But yeah, so the large chest is in the main courtyard. There's a big crab there, and there's also a bunch of corpses around it, so if you want some loot, that's a good place to start. Down in the underground, in the room before the boss, there's a seal box. It's guarded by some Albinarics who can cast spells, and they do a surprising amount of damage, so be careful of them, but they're really weak, so you shouldn't have too much trouble killing them. The boss here is a pair of Ray of the Caria Knights, so there's a guy that has a spear and there's a guy that has a sword. The spear guy can do Glintstone Pebble, where he casts a Glintstone Pebble at you, and then he'll do a follow-up thrust that does a bunch of damage, so be careful of that. And the sword guy can buff his sword with magic buildup, and that makes it do just a bunch of damage when he hits you, so be careful of that. But other than that, these guys are really easy. If you're having trouble with their shields, then you can use something like the kick skill, which you have and you're unarmed. So if you have no weapon equipped, you'll do a kick when you use your Ash of War, and that'll instantly break their guard. Or, you know, just go like fishing for backstabs or whatever. They're very easy. You shouldn't have any trouble with them. Once they're dead, you can use the Spirit Stream to get out, and on the exit rampart is where you'll find the staff rack. And then up on the rampart tower and on the wall after the tower, there are crates and a chest which can drop a bunch of sleep stuff like sleep pots and sleep grease. So if you're fighting the Balancers, their weakness is sleep, so that's helpful against them. Or if you're fighting the Dreadlord, he can have, as a Night 1 boss, he can have the Great Red Bear, and the Rune Bears are all weak to sleep, so that's very helpful for them too. So I definitely recommend you stop by any sleep marshes that you see, because, you know, you're always going to see them when you're on expedition against either the Balancers or the Dreadlord, and this stuff can really come in handy. So that's it for the layouts and stuff of the marshes, and besides that, there's one more thing I want to talk about, which is just a couple miscellaneous tips about navigating the marshes. So first of all, something that I didn't show in any of the previous clips is that there is a side entrance that leads directly into the underground and lets you skip the marsh and the main underground entrance. So if you just want to get straight to the boss, or if you die and you want to get back to the boss more quickly, you saw where it is, where the exit rampart tower is. It's on the side of that. So you can just go climb up into that and then come straight down into the underground area. All the marshes have this, and it's really useful if you want to get in and out real quick. The marsh also has a bunch of rear entrances around its perimeter, so you don't have to go in through the front and the big open spot of it. You can just climb up through the wall and then use that to go directly into the back of the marsh. A couple of them lead you directly to the side courtyard. One of them leads you right here to the main courtyard. So these can also be useful shortcuts in case you're approaching the marsh from behind. And one final tip I have, so we all know that the swamp up here in the main courtyard slows you down when you're walking through it. There are a few ways to deal with this. So the first way, preferably, is just don't get into the muck. There's plenty of dry land that you can jump onto, where if you're surge sprinting, you can pretty easily jump between it. You know, if you land in the muck or something, just do a roll forward to get onto a land, and then, you know, keep moving. And, you know, just be careful not to get fucking owned. If you're in the muck and you need to move a bit faster, one of the things you can do is you can just roll. You know, it'll drain your stamina if you're in combat, so be careful of that, but it's slightly faster than just walking slowly through the muck, so that can be helpful. And then again, once you get onto dry land, you know, just try jumping over the muck instead of walking through it. Alternatively, if you're trying to move in a straight line, you can just do back steps. So to do a back step, what you do is you stand still and you tap the dodge button without moving the you know, movement controls. So if you want to go in a specific direction, face away from where you're going, let go of any movement controls, and then just tap the dodge button, and that'll make you back step. And so that's slightly faster than rolling, but you have worse control. And then finally, this one's a bit more situational because you have to pick up a weapon that has this Ash of War, but if you have the Quick Step or Bloodhound Step Ash of War, you can use that to quickly just dash through the muck, as long as you have FP to do it. But anyway, that's it for this guide. I covered just about everything I think there is to cover. Like I said, like the things that are up on the really tall, like Twin Towers or whatever, there can be like chests or corpses up there depending on which marsh it is, but it's so impractical and hard to get to them that it's really not worth the time to worry about it, if you ask me. You know, it's a cool little thing if you want to explore, but you're not going to get anything amazing from this stuff. Like, hey, there you go, there's a corpse right there, you know. So, you know, it's a pain in the ass to get there, and it's not really practical during gameplay. So I didn't bother with that stuff. But yeah, if you found this guide helpful, please leave a like, share the video, consider subscribing, consider joining my channel as a member if you want to support me. My name is Diabudor, and I will catch you later.